Brexit trade talks have led to fury from Prime Minister Boris Johnson as the UK fears the EU's coronavirus recovery fund could enable the bloc to screw Britain. A Brexit trade deal could be ripped apart after the UK and the EU clashed over a key issue in talks as Brexiteers fear Brussels could gain a backdoor advantage. Tension is already boiling over fisheries, as the EU looks to preserve its access to UK fishing grounds. Brussels has also warned the UK it must accept regulatory alignment if Britain is to keep access to European markets. However, rows over state aid rules have once again emerged as an additional stumbling block after the EU's coronavirus recovery fund sparked anger in London. The bloc agreed to an initial £685 billion €750 billion recovery package in April, aimed at stimulating the European economy. Tied in with the rest of the EU's budget for the next 7 years, the fund becomes a £1.64 trillion €1.8 trillion package. However, Downing Street has raised questions because the entire fund is exempt from the EU's own state aid rules. If the UK were to launch its own recovery fund, it would be limited by rules on state aid. State aid rules have been in place since the Treaty of Rome was signed in 1957. It stops member states from giving companies or industries help that would distort competition, although there are exemptions to the rules. Governments cannot hand out subsidies, tax rebates or take stakes in companies unless it is justified by reasons of general economic development. Culture, infrastructure and education are among areas where exceptions can be made, but the UK fears that the COVID Recovery Fund could give the EU a backdoor advantage. On the Brexit Republic podcast, RTE's Europe editor Tony Connolly explained the dispute. He said last week, the UK is saying with some justification, if you guys are able to do that and pump money into car battery champions, you can do that. But if the UK does it, then we can't because of state aid rules. The difference, though, is that individual member states have to abide by very strict state aid rules, and the UK will be expected to do the same as part of a framework in this treaty. But the EU as a whole, when it spends money through its budget, is not subject to state aid rules because that is a collective pot of money. There's reason on both sides here. One UK official told me if we do it we get screwed by state aid rules, which is just not fair. RTE's London correspondent Sean Whalen added, if those controls can be overrun by routing the money through Brussels, it could be a backdoor for state aid.